Whether it was on land, in the air, or at sea, this year's International Sea Breeze military exercises in and around the Black Sea coastline were the biggest and most complex ever.
So these are the Sea Breeze military exercises. This is just one plane that's involved in this. There's lots of other stuff happening as well. Now, this is not the first time that the military exercises have taken place. In fact, annually, they've been held since 1997. It's important to highlight the scale of these drills. There's about 3,000 soldiers from over a dozen countries who are involved in this. And so various exercises have been taking place, including air defense, also rescue operations, and also intelligence gathering and surveillance as well. And that's just a few of some of the military drills that have taken place here in Mykolaiv.
The roar of two of the Ukrainian Air Force's fighter jets filled the sky, and it's deafening. These various maneuvers are tactical and complex and are aimed at striking and eliminating targets. In the early days of Russia's hybrid war back in 2014, Ukrainian pilots used these types of Soviet-designed twin-engine aircraft against the enemy. But after a series of combat planes were damaged, further aerial operations along the Donbass front line were stopped. Yet these planes could play a key future role in shoring up regional security, not just for Ukraine, but also for its allies and neighbours. If any future challenges from Russia in the east or the Middle East to the south ever occur. And that's what Sea Breeze is all about, interoperability. But what does interoperability really mean in practice? Major Mike Carvin, a US Air Force pilot, explained more.
People do everything differently. So if you every time you practice, you learn something new and you learn how to get to that common ground. So that when I say something, I know that whoever on the Ukrainian side understands what I mean, and vice versa.
And I would imagine that language is one of the key barriers, maybe just not of this exercise. What other barriers are there in terms of operating like multinational operations?
So, I mean, in addition to language being a part of it, but the cultural aspect is huge. So when it comes down to, I can say the same word and it means something different to them and something different to us. And so if we continue working through, we can see where those differences are and we mean the difference. And so then okay, do we need interpreters? Do we have, where can we find common ground that we can work together so we can increase and like strengthen those ties? And then ultimately it's just the more you work together, the more it comes together, and that's what gives you that interop.
The US Navy's military contingent at this year's Sea Breeze drills was the strongest ever, perhaps a signal of Washington's resolve for its allies in the region, including Ukraine.
This is the first year that the P-8 Poseidon anti-submarine aircraft has ever been used in Ukraine. And this is the first year ever that the CV-22 Osprey has been used in Ukraine. As with all members of the military for each country, I am not here to speak about the political differences of our countries. However, an essential component to our combined security is for nations that are allied together or partnered together, that exercises like Sea Breeze ensure that in time of conflict that we will all be able to, on the battlefield, speak the same language.
The Sea Breeze multinational military exercises were a significant opportunity for Ukraine to learn more about transitioning to NATO standards. For the first time, elite US and Ukrainian Special Operations Forces trained together. In these operations, the teaching is not one-sided. With Ukraine's over 3 years of experience fighting combined regular Russian military troops and separatist forces, NATO allied forces from other countries also have a lot to learn, especially from veterans who have fought in Europe's only current land war.
Specifically, like, there's a saying that when one teaches, two learn. So as instructors, it forces us to really know our stuff, because for a lot of these partner forces, they're going to be putting this to very practical use in very short order. So from our end, it forces us to, hey, make sure we're sound on our doctrine, sound on our tactics, sound on all the things that we're going to be instructing them, because this is something that we take very seriously as a military whenever we're standing in front of our partners and teaching them. So we certainly gain that from that. With respect to specific lessons learned, there's a great deal of very recent experiences that a lot of these partners are bringing to the training. So you see this interesting dynamic where there's some senior soldiers, Marines, that have been in extensive combat, types of combat that the U.S. hasn't been involved in as recently, and we're able to look at our doctrine, our tactics, our techniques through that lens that they're sharing with us as they're telling us stories of their experiences, and move forward from that. And at the same token, obviously observe the mistakes that the newer guys are making as we're correcting them as a reinforcement of, hey, this is what doesn't come naturally.
The US and Georgian troops involved in the Ukrainian-led artillery firing exercises were particularly impressed. A large portion of the long-range projectiles landed within 30 meters of the intended target, enough to cause significant damage to enemy positions. An American aerial drone was used for what the military calls ISR, that's intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance.
We're able to throw the drone up, the Raven RQ-11B. It has about a 45-minute flight time, and what that allows us to do is to collect on the target, identify where the target is, and then we can give those grid coordinates back to the mortarman, and then they can prosecute that target.
I see. And what sort of capabilities do these drones have? I mean, do they work at night time? What sort of distance can they see? That sort of thing.
So we have the RQ-11 Bravo. That has the ability to do full motion video with regular camera. Has a thermal camera, which has a white hot, black hot setting. And it can fly up to 10,000 feet MSL, mean sea level. And it has pretty good capabilities.
Seabreeze 2017, like all other multinational military exercises, aim to build bridges between nations. The ability of NATO member and partner countries to operate as one is vital for regional security in Eastern Europe. The long-term foreign policy goals of Russia under Vladimir Putin are still uncertain. The number of global security threats are rising. Yet, by boosting military cooperation, countries can be more confident in being prepared to deal with any hostile situation, and therefore giving a boost to peace in the Black Sea region.